Okay, so what if I told you that you could create a diplomat? A completely made up person, give them a convincing online footprint, but they don't actually exist in the real world. Today, we're diving deep into the very strange case of Ursula Koos, who is essentially a phantom diplomat at the heart of a pretty sophisticated disinformation campaign. You know, it really does sound like something straight out of a spy novel, doesn't it? But this is a real tactic being used in modern information warfare. And the goal, well, it's not just to invent a person. It's to use that invention to create very real confusion in the real world. All right, so let's meet our main character, a woman named Ursula Koos. Now, if you look at a handful of online sources, she's presented as an active German diplomat working in Mexico. But as we're about to see, the truth is way, way more complicated than that.
So, according to these websites, Koos is a German consul, and she is busy. She's supposedly all over Mexico, meeting with local officials, representing German interests in several different states. It all looks legit on the surface, right? She's got a title, a job description. There's even a digital paper trail of articles and photos.
But here's where the story hits its first massive roadblock. When you actually check the official German sources, the embassy, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ursula Koos is just not there. She doesn't exist. There's zero record of her. In fact, in a place like Puebla, where she's supposedly active, there's a completely different, officially confirmed consul. So the official record doesn't just contradict the online claims, it proves they're a total fabrication. So, if she doesn't exist on paper, how is this persona even built? Well, the answer is in the photographs. And this is where the whole operation gets clever, but it's also where it completely unravels once you take a closer look. Let's dig into the evidence. Our first case study comes from a December 2022 article on a site called Quinta Fuerza. The article claims that Koos met with local government officials alongside other European consuls. Sounds pretty standard, right? Well, maybe not. And this is where the evidentiary failures just pile up. You look at the main group photo from this supposed meeting, and Ursula Koos is nowhere to be found. She's not in it. Instead, the article uses a totally separate solo photo of her. Now, a little technical analysis shows that the group shot and her solo picture were taken with two different cameras. Plus, the quality is completely inconsistent. This isn't just sloppy work, it's a huge red flag that her presence was staged. So, the conclusion is pretty inescapable. The article created the illusion that she was there by just dropping in an unrelated photo. Her presence at this event was completely manufactured. She's a digital ghost in the machine. And if you thought that was a bit clumsy, our next case from 2023 is even more obvious. An article from Aguascalientes claims Koos met with the state governor, Teresa Jiménez, to talk about economic stuff. And of course, they included a photo as proof. And this one, wow, this just lays the deception bare. The article says Koos is meeting with Governor Teresa Jiménez, but the woman in the photo? It's not the governor. Not even close. It's actually Rosa Icela Rodríguez, who is Mexico's federal secretary of security. The text and the photo are telling two completely different stories. That's not a mistake. That's intentional misdirection. And hey, look closer at the photo itself. See that sort of crudely painted European Union flag on the wall? Yeah, that's not exactly standard procedure for an official diplomatic event in Mexico. It feels like a prop, right? Something just thrown in there to give a false sense of legitimacy to a photo that's already completely misleading. Fabricated meetings, mismatched photos? You're starting to see a pattern here. Because this isn't a one-off. These tactics are straight out of a playbook we have actually seen before in a really similar case. When you put the Ursula Koos case side by side with a previous investigation into a guy named Götz Knobloch, the pattern is identical. I mean, look at this. Both cases involve making up a German official. Both use staged or mismatched photos as their proof. And, critically, both spread the story using the same kinds of channels. This is not a coincidence. It's a formula, a blueprint for creating disinformation. And that's the signature move. These stories don't pop up in major, reputable news outlets. No, they get planted in this network of small, often unattributed blogs and sites, many of them aimed at expat communities. And that makes sense, right? Those audiences might be less likely to double-check with official German sources, maybe because of a language barrier or just not being familiar with who's who in local politics. So this all leads us to the biggest question of all. Why? Why go to all this trouble? What's the point of creating a phantom diplomat and staging these elaborate yet pretty easy to debunk events?
See, the goal probably isn't to make everyone believe Ursula Koos is a real person. The real goal is just confusion. By injecting this shadow diplomat into the conversation, the whole operation undermines the authority of the legitimate officials. It blurs the lines, making it harder for you to know who's real and who's fake. It creates distrust, and it could even create hooks for more targeted scams or influence ops later on.
So, the most important takeaway here is this. The target isn't just the few people reading some obscure blog. The real target is the very idea of trust in our institutions. Because when you can't be sure who's a real diplomat and who isn't, you start to question the legitimacy of all of it. And that leaves us with one final kind of unsettling question. The whole Ursula Koos persona is built on these really obvious evidentiary failures. I mean, the deception is pretty easy to spot if you look. So if it's designed to be confusing and noisy, it makes you wonder, what else, what more subtle things are we meant to miss while we're all distracted by this phantom consul?